Hey, good afternoon and evening, everyone. Carolina Weather Authority's meteorologist Joshua Nagelberg. Hope you had a wonderful Wednesday. I'm going to keep this video a little bit shorter for you. We've got a little bit less to talk about in the tropics, but I still have what I think will be some important information I think you need to see if you're planning any travel to Central America in the next couple of weeks. If you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, that'd be appreciated, and feel free to show your support and share it with some of your friends. We definitely have had a lot to talk about. I don't anticipate that that's going to drop off a whole lot for you. We also have our website here, carolinawxauthority.com, for those of you that live here in the Carolinas to see what we're looking at temperature-wise tonight, or maybe our first hard freeze for some of the parts of the Carolinas here of the season. Here's what we're talking about tropics-wise. We're not completely dead, although things have quieted down, thank the Lord. But we continue to have unsettled weather in the southwestern Caribbean. I'm going to talk about some potential development coming up as we head after Thanksgiving in the U.S. Into the first part of December. I believe probably a good threat that we could see more storms in December, believe it or not. And whether or not we have another AIDA or Iota, I'm going to say is highly unlikely. But if there's any season that something like that could happen where we may have a record hurricane in December, I would think it would be 2020. I think the only thing that we can really safely say right now about this hurricane season is that the only thing that's going to stop it is the clock turning midnight on January 1st and the end of the year 2020, which I know we're all awaiting. I think, what are we, 89% of the way there? Please don't hit the reset button right now in the middle of this update. Windows people probably know what I'm talking about. We're also going to keep an eye on an area here that could form near Bermuda. It's not going to be anything of much consequence, just maybe a waste of a named storm, but I say waste of a name because it's not going to have a huge amount of impact other than to the fish and maybe some rain to Bermuda. But it may be classified as a subtropical or tropical cyclone if it can gain enough of a core here, and that could be 5 days down the road still. Here's our list, and you can see we're well above average. 13 hurricanes this year. That's the average number of named storms. 6 major hurricanes. That's about twice the average. 30 total storms puts us in record territory. And we still have some Greek letters that can be used up. I really hope we don't get to Omega, and I don't expect we'll get that deep. But I think Kappa and Lambda look a little bit more promising to be used. Mu and Nu, maybe. Once we get down to Omicron and letters I can't even say, then I think we're going to be... the clock's going to run out on 2020. All right, so the remains of Iota have now moved off of the coast from El Salvador. It's still raining pretty hard, by the way, in Guatemala, El Salvador, even southern Belize and Honduras. So it's not like the system's magically disappeared and you can wave your wand and it's done raining. Unfortunately, we're still dealing with lots of onshore flow coming into these countries and more devastating rainfall in the forecast coming up. And that's going to come from this area in yellow here. We've got a 10% chance of development, which is actually lowered. So there's some good news. But nonetheless, the impacts will be the same. We're looking at new flooding concerns possibly at the end of this week and into next week in some of the same countries, Costa Rica, Panama, and certainly Nicaragua and Honduras. And right now, a lower chance of development. It's just looking like the wind shear is maybe a little bit too much to get something to consolidate. But nonetheless, this area is not cooling off anytime soon. And we still have to watch it into December, I believe. Here's the other area I spoke about, and I'll show that to you on our infrared. It's got a 20% chance of developing. What's going on is we've got a front here and a little bit of a circulation trying to get going. And right now, nothing too organized. We do have some thunderstorms blowing up out ahead of this front, well to the northeast of Puerto Rico, but models show lowering wind shear and maybe a more favorable environment for some gradual development over maybe the 5 to 10 day period heading into next week. Here you can see this is a 24-hour loop. This is Iota, which has now moved back over water, lost a lot of its core thunderstorm activity, but it is still raining quite a bit in this region. But notice this area of thunderstorms in here, kind of a tropical wave and weak surface low forming. Models a couple days ago had this developing a little bit more rapidly. Now they're backing off, which is news I definitely like to share with you. But nonetheless, you can see it's super wet in here, and this moisture is going to get carried westward over time and impact areas over the weekend that just cannot afford to have any more rain. So that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about here. You'll see from the weather bell map here, model rain over the next 2 weeks will get up to 200 to 300 millimeters of rain, even as much as 400. That's basically 6 to 12 inches of rain, and a few of these higher end spots could pick up maybe 2 more feet of rain. This is totally independent of what we had with Iota. This is new rain coming in. And you can see some of these coastal locations in Nicaragua and Honduras could see another 6 to 12 inches of rain just in the next week or two alone. So you can only imagine how bad that's going to make things. It's just going to exacerbate the situation that's already ongoing here. Panama and Colombia could see quite a bit of rain as well here. It's like the fire hose just isn't getting shut off, even though the storm has pretty much weakened. Here's the reason why, by the way, it's staying active. Well, a few reasons. We look at the MJO to see where the air will rise and where it will sink, and the green favors rising air here, so we've seen a very active phase of the MJO, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, in the Western Caribbean. You'll see that that phase does shut off here in a few days, and conditions are less favorable for rising air. It doesn't mean something weak couldn't form, it's just not going to be a bonanza of storms like we've seen the last few weeks. Now notice there's one more wave coming back in here. This is the 8th of December, so in about 20 days to 25, maybe 30 days from now, we definitely have the potential to see new development in this area, one or two maybe new named storms. And the reason why is that the water's not really cooling off quite as quickly as we'd like to see. It's warm pretty much basin-wide across the Atlantic. It's a La Nina year. We've just had rising global temperatures, and this part of the world is benefiting from the La Nina seeing warmer than average temperatures, and it's going to be a mild winter in the southeast. So these water temperatures are going to stay up as we head into 2021, and that's what I'm watching for when I'm starting to look at my forecast for next season, which I think is going to remain active, but it's going to have maybe potentially a different feel to it than this year. Depending on what happens with El Nino versus La Nina. We had a weak La Nina earlier this season. It was actually pretty much neutral, but then the La Nina strengthened as we got into October, and it's reached its peak here at the very end of October, beginning of November. It's actually come up a little bit. So this basically shows the most amount of cooling in the equatorial Pacific south of the equator, so west of countries like Peru, for example. Now, as these waters are predicted to potentially warm up with respect to average, the La Nina should weaken, and that should mean a little bit less favorable conditions for a bonanza of storms next year. It doesn't mean we can't have strong storms. If you look at the amount of warm water that's going to be available to us next season, we could definitely have some strong hurricanes. In fact, the 2004-2005 time frame could be rivaled again here in 2020 and 2021. That's something I'll be looking at for you guys here in the coming weeks. Finally, we'll look at wind shear. Notice how favorable it looks for weaker than average wind shear as we head into the second couple of weeks in the Caribbean Sea. So this, of course, means we have easterly trades, but the wind shear is down to about maybe 10 knots. And that certainly favors an area of thunderstorms to get going to maybe develop into something tropically here in December. So this is what I'm watching for you guys. This is a climate forecast system coming off the GFS. You know, it's not super favorable the next week or two, but it's trending back in that direction in December. So I think with the waters being as warm as they are in the low to mid 80s down there, we could still see one or two named systems heading all the way up to maybe even close to Christmas time, unfortunately. If there's a year it's going to happen, it's going to be this year. Let's just put it that way. And finally, I'll show you the upper level pattern. And right now, this massive area of high pressure sitting over the southeast is going to keep the Gulf of Mexico from any kind of development. Northeasterly trade winds are favorable for the Gulf states and, of course, for the Yucatan as well. We do have, of course, this is the remains of what was Iota. But right now, not a lot spinning up for the next few days. But as we head into early December, we could see one or two spots popping up here, it looks like. And I'll show you that on the European. The probability of getting something to develop in here has dropped off quite a bit to 20%, and that number continues to drop next week. So the European ensembles are showing less of a likelihood of a tropical system forming in the next maybe 10 days or so. But after that, I think we'll start to see things potentially pulse back up in this area and here, as well as up in this area. All right, folks, well, that's all I've got for you. Hope you all have a wonderful evening, and please, if you could, subscribe to our YouTube channel and show your support. We'll have more for you coming up in the interim and more videos coming up down the pipe. Have a great day. God bless.